Imagine for a moment that a sound you have ignored your entire life is not random. Imagine that the ringing in your ears, that subtle vibration that appears in silence, is not a medical accident, not a coincidence, but a signal. What if it is a whisper from beyond the visible world? What if, as some ancient traditions suggest, it is a spiritual call? And what if the teachings attributed to Jesus Christ contain a hidden key to understanding what that ringing truly means? Stay with me, because today we are going to uncover something profound. By the end of this journey, you will see that the final revelation is the most powerful of all, and it may completely transform the way you interpret your spiritual experiences, your consciousness, and even your purpose in this world. Throughout history, mystics, desert fathers, and seekers of divine wisdom have described inner sounds as signs of spiritual awakening. In the silence of monasteries and the solitude of deserts, many reported hearing subtle tones, vibrations, or celestial harmonies. Were they hallucinating, or were they tuning into something greater? If you are fascinated by hidden wisdom, ancient mysteries, and the deeper spiritual teachings passed down through generations, make sure you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who is also searching for truth. Write in the comments if you have ever experienced unexplained ringing in your ears. Your experience may resonate with others. What we are about to explore could change how you understand your own life and your connection to the universe. Now think carefully. In the Gospel narratives, Jesus repeatedly says, "He who has ears to hear, let him hear." Why emphasize hearing? Why not simply say understand? Why not say believe? Hearing, in the spiritual sense, is more than perceiving sound. It is awakening to frequency, to vibration, to divine communication. Ancient Hebrew thought viewed creation itself as sound. The universe was spoken into existence. The word was not metaphorical, it was vibrational. Modern physics, interestingly, echoes this idea. Everything is frequency, everything is energy in motion. Could it be that the ringing some people experience is a subtle shift in perception, a heightened sensitivity to spiritual frequency? The early Christian mystics, as studied by scholars like Elaine Pagels, often interpreted spiritual experiences symbolically rather than literally. They believed divine communication was inward, mystical, experiential. It was not always thunder from the sky. Sometimes it was silence that vibrated with meaning, and here is where it becomes intriguing. Many spiritual traditions speak of awakening as a change in inner perception. In certain contemplative paths, practitioners report that as consciousness expands, the inner world becomes more vivid. Subtle sensations intensify, awareness sharpens. The boundary between the physical and the spiritual feels thinner. So ask yourself, when the ringing appears, what were you thinking? What were you feeling? Were you anxious or were you calm? Were you distracted or were you reflecting deeply? Patterns matter. Awareness matters. Some interpret the ringing as a neurological phenomenon, and from a medical standpoint, that explanation must always be respected. But spiritual interpretation does not necessarily cancel physical explanation. The human being is layered. Body, mind, and spirit are intertwined. A physical sensation can carry symbolic meaning. A biological event can coincide with spiritual awakening. Jesus often spoke in parables, revealing deeper truths to those ready to perceive them. What if the ringing is not a message in words, but an invitation to silence, an invitation to attention, an invitation to alignment? Because here is the first truth. Before revelation comes awareness. Before divine clarity comes inner stillness. And what if that ringing is the beginning of stillness calling you inward? In the next part, we will explore how ancient esoteric teachings describe sacred sound, celestial frequencies, and the mysterious music of the spheres, and how this connects directly to what Jesus may have been pointing toward when he spoke about those who truly have ears to hear. Throughout ancient philosophy, there was a concept so powerful that it shaped the way mystics understood reality itself. The Greek philosopher Pythagoras spoke of something extraordinary, the music of the spheres. He taught that the planets, in their movements, produced harmonies beyond the range of ordinary human hearing. The universe, according to this vision, was not silent. It was singing. Now, pause and think. If the cosmos vibrates, if existence itself is structured through frequency and resonance, then what does it mean when you perceive a tone that seems to come from nowhere? Centuries later, thinkers like Johannes Kepler would revisit this idea, proposing mathematical harmonies governing planetary motion. Science and mysticism were not always enemies. They were once partners in the search for hidden order. In Jewish mystical traditions that influenced the spiritual atmosphere of the time in which Jesus lived, sound carried immense significance. Creation began with utterance. The divine name was considered vibrational power. The spoken word shaped reality. And in the Gospel of John, the opening declares that in the beginning was the Word. The Greek term used there implies not merely speech, but divine ordering principle, intelligent vibration. What if Jesus was not only teaching moral instruction, but also pointing toward a deeper law of resonance? Consider his repeated emphasis on inner receptivity. He did not force revelation, he invited perception. He said that those who truly listen would understand mysteries others could not grasp. Listening in this context becomes spiritual alignment, and here is something remarkable. Modern neuroscience confirms that the brain itself operates through electrical oscillations. Your thoughts are patterns of frequency. Your emotional states correspond to measurable brainwave changes. Scholars such as Andrew Newberg have studied how spiritual experiences alter neural activity, particularly during prayer and contemplation. The boundary between mystical perception and measurable physiology grows thinner the deeper we look. So when the ringing appears, could it be that your awareness is shifting? Could it coincide with moments when your consciousness is recalibrating? Many contemplative practitioners describe that, as they deepen meditation, subtle inner tones become more noticeable. They do not chase the sound. They do not fear it. They observe it. And in that observation, they often report heightened clarity, intuition, and peace. But here is where caution and wisdom must walk together. Not every sensation is spiritual. Not every vibration is mystical. Discernment is essential. Jesus himself warned about deception, about mistaking illusion for truth. Spiritual maturity requires balance. So instead of asking, is the ringing supernatural? Perhaps a more powerful question is this: what is this experience inviting me to notice? Is it drawing your attention inward? Is it interrupting mental noise? Is it appearing during moments of emotional intensity or deep reflection? Awareness transforms experience, and here comes a deeper layer. In many esoteric interpretations of early Christian teachings, spiritual awakening is described as remembering, not learning something new, but awakening to what was always present. If that is true, then the ringing may not be a message coming from outside of you. It may be the sound of your own consciousness becoming aware of itself. Think about that carefully. If divine reality is not distant but within, as Jesus taught when he spoke about the kingdom being inside you, then the most sacred signals would not come from the sky. They would arise in silence, within the temple of your own awareness. In the next part, we will explore how silence itself becomes the doorway, how inner sound connects to states of revelation, and why the final understanding of what the ringing truly means is far more personal and transformative than most people imagine. Silence has always been the doorway. Long before cathedrals were built and doctrines were formalized, seekers withdrew into stillness to encounter the divine. In the deserts of Egypt, early Christian contemplatives practiced deep interior prayer, seeking not visions, not spectacle, but presence. Scholars such as Thomas Merton later described this silence as a space where the false self dissolves and a deeper awareness emerges. Now reflect on this carefully. When does the ringing usually appear? Often it comes in moments of quiet. When external noise fades, something internal becomes audible. It is almost as if the background hum of existence reveals itself only when distraction subsides. Jesus frequently withdrew from crowds to pray in solitude. This detail is not accidental. Withdrawal was not escape, it was alignment. In silence, perception sharpens. In stillness, subtlety becomes clear. The human mind is constantly processing stimuli. Thoughts overlap. Emotions rise and fall. But beneath that activity, there is a quieter layer of awareness. Many spiritual traditions teach that when you approach that layer, perception changes. You begin to notice sensations that were always there but previously ignored. Could the ringing be one of those thresholds? Contemplative researchers like William James observed that mystical experiences often involve heightened sensitivity, a sense of unity, and altered perception of sound and light. The experience is not necessarily supernatural in the dramatic sense. It is transformative because it shifts interpretation, and interpretation changes everything. If you believe the ringing is random, you dismiss it. If you believe it is a threat, you fear it. But if you approach it as a signal for attention, as an invitation to awaken, then the experience becomes purposeful. Notice this. Jesus did not simply heal bodies. He awakened perception. He would say, "Your faith has made you whole." Faith in this sense is alignment of consciousness. It is resonance with truth. Resonance. When two frequencies align, they amplify. When your inner state aligns with deeper awareness, perception intensifies. The ringing may coincide with such moments, not because it is a coded message, but because your sensitivity has increased. Here is a powerful reflection. What if the ringing is not something happening to you, but something happening through you? What if it is the subtle sound of transition, the threshold between distraction and awareness? Ask yourself, what changes in you immediately after it occurs? Do you pause? Do you reflect? Does your breathing shift? Do you become more present? Presence is the key. Throughout esoteric interpretations of Christ's teachings, the central message was not external domination of the world, but inner transformation. The kingdom was described as within. The light was described as within. The truth was described as something that sets you free from inside outward. And here we approach something deeper. Sound is vibration. Vibration is movement. Movement is life. If the ringing appears at moments of emotional intensity, decision, intuition, or contemplation, perhaps it is a reminder that you are not merely a physical organism reacting to stimuli. You are consciousness experiencing itself in layers. But we are not yet at the most powerful revelation. Because in the next part, we will explore the possibility that the ringing is connected not only to awareness, but to alignment with purpose, and why the final understanding of what it truly means may challenge everything you thought you knew about spiritual signs. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when the question shifts. At first we ask, what is happening to me? Later we begin to ask, what is this awakening me to? This shift is everything. Many people interpret unusual sensations as signs from outside forces, but the deeper mystical tradition suggests something far more transformative. Awakening is not about receiving external signals. It is about remembering internal truth. The theologian Origen wrote that Scripture itself has layers, literal and spiritual, and that only those prepared inwardly can perceive its deepest meaning. If sacred texts operate in layers, why would human experience not function the same way? The ringing, then, may not be a message in the conventional sense. It may be a marker, a threshold, a moment when your awareness brushes against a deeper layer of reality. Think about how often it occurs during transitions, before sleep, during intense thought, in moments of emotional clarity, at times when you feel a sudden intuition or realization. What if it is not predicting something? What if it is synchronizing you? Throughout history, mystics have described spiritual growth as alignment. Alignment with truth, alignment with divine will, alignment with purpose. Jesus spoke repeatedly about becoming one with the Father, about unity, about abiding. These are not abstract theological ideas. They describe resonance. Resonance means harmony between frequencies. If your consciousness is shifting, expanding, or recalibrating, subtle physiological sensations may accompany that shift. Modern researchers like Herbert Benson demonstrated that deep prayer and meditation create measurable changes in the nervous system. The body responds to inner states. The spiritual and the biological are not enemies. They are intertwined expressions of one reality. Now consider something deeper. Jesus never encouraged obsession with signs. In fact, he often warned against chasing them. Why? Because the true transformation was internal. Signs without awakening mean nothing, but awakening itself is the sign. So here is a challenging thought. What if the ringing is not proof of something mystical, but a call to responsibility? A reminder that you are becoming more aware, and with awareness comes accountability. You cannot unsee what you have seen. You cannot unknow what you have realized. Perhaps the ringing appears when you are at a crossroads, when a decision aligns with your higher self, when your intuition whispers louder than your fear. Have you noticed that sometimes it comes right after a profound thought, or when you suddenly understand something about your life that you previously avoided? What if it marks moments of inner truth? Throughout esoteric Christianity, awakening was described as illumination, light entering the mind. But light is energy, and energy vibrates. If consciousness brightens, could sensitivity increase as well? Here we approach the final and most powerful layer. The ringing may not mean that something is speaking to you. It may mean that you are finally listening. And in the next and final part, we will bring everything together and reveal why this understanding changes not only how you interpret the ringing, but how you understand your role in the unfolding of your own spiritual evolution. Now we arrive at the final and most powerful revelation. For centuries, people have searched for signs. Signs in the sky, signs in dreams, signs in sudden sensations. They looked outward, hoping the divine would interrupt reality with something unmistakable. But what if the greatest sign was never meant to be external? When Jesus spoke about the kingdom of God being within, he shifted the axis of spiritual authority. No longer was truth confined to temples or distant heavens. It was interior, immediate, alive in consciousness itself. The theologian Meister Eckhart wrote that the eye with which we see God is the same eye with which God sees us. That statement is radical. It suggests unity. It suggests that awakening is not about distance being crossed, but about awareness being uncovered. So what does the ringing really mean? It may mean that you are crossing thresholds of awareness, not because angels are whispering coded messages, not because fate is manipulating your nervous system, but because consciousness is dynamic. When perception sharpens, subtle phenomena become noticeable. When inner noise decreases, underlying vibration becomes perceptible. The final truth is this: the ringing is not the message. You are, your awareness, your attention, your capacity to witness your own thoughts and emotions. That is the revelation. If the ringing causes you to pause, to reflect, to become present, then it has already fulfilled its purpose. It has redirected your focus from distraction to consciousness, from reaction to observation. Jesus consistently invited people into this shift. He asked them to see differently, to hear differently, to awaken. His miracles often followed moments of faith, which in deeper spiritual language means alignment. When alignment happens, perception transforms. Think about your own life. How often are you truly present? How often do you move through the world on autopilot, consumed by noise, digital distraction, fear, expectation? And then suddenly there is a tone, a vibration, a break in the mental stream. In that instant, you are aware. That awareness is sacred. Scholars of religious experience such as Rudolf Otto described encounters with the numinous as moments of awe, a sense that reality is deeper than it appears. But those encounters are often subtle. They are not always dramatic visions. Sometimes they are quiet shifts in perception. The ringing may simply be a doorway. But here is the deeper challenge. Do not become attached to the doorway. Walk through it. If the sensation invites you inward, go inward. If it interrupts your distraction, embrace the pause. If it coincides with insight, honor the clarity. But do not chase the phenomenon itself. Chasing signs keeps you on the surface. Living consciously transforms you at the core. The most powerful understanding is not that the ringing carries hidden information. It is that you are capable of awareness, profound enough to notice it. And once you realize that your consciousness can observe itself, everything changes. You are no longer merely reacting to life, you are participating in it deliberately. That is awakening. That is what it truly means to have ears to hear. And perhaps the real question was never, why is there ringing? The real question is, Now that you are aware, what will you do with that awareness?